All right, folks. We're going to keep moving and get to the next panel. The person I'm now going to welcome to the stage is a shining beacon in the world of venture capital. Deepa Prasad is managing director at WestRiver Group, where she leverages her 20 years of investing and operations experience to guide healthcare investments in biotech and digital health and AI. Deepa also serves on the Committee for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at UC Davis, awarding grant funding to scientific research. And as a charter member for TiE, a nonprofit global network of entrepreneurs and VCs, she mentors startup companies. Over the next half hour, Deepa will discuss the importance of diversity in the world of venture capital and private equity with an incredible set of panelists. So Deepa, I'm going to turn this over to you to do the honors, introduce your guests, and we look forward to hearing your conversation.
Thank you so much, Rajni, for organizing this and raising it at TiEcon. Excited to be here with all of you and moderate this amazing group of panelists. Not only are they all wonderful people, but they're exceptionally smart, strong, motivated investors and entrepreneurs that have achieved incredible success in starting their own firms. So I admire them all, and I'm excited to share their experiences with you. So that they don't have to brag, I will go ahead and introduce them all to you. Start with Alicia Sontag, who co-founded Prelude Growth Ventures with her partner Netta, focusing on disrupting consumer brands. Prelude closed its first fund in February 2018, and its second fund of $250 million just this past February. Prior to founding Prelude, Alicia was global president of beauty at Johnson & Johnson and held executive roles at Estee Lauder, Bobbi Brown, and Clinique. She began her career at McKinsey. Thank you, Alicia. Garen Kong, he founded HealthQuest in 2012, focusing on healthcare innovation. He has over 2 decades of experience and tremendous success with over 25 IPOs and M&A exits. He got his MD, PhD, and MBA from Duke. So good to see you in blue today, Garheng. David Benali, he's founding and managing partner of Advanced Venture Partners. He has over 20 years of experience as an investor in tech, media, and communication sectors. Prior to founding AVP, David was a managing director of TPG Growth, where he led the firm's global tech investing effort. He recently led the Series D round in Ginger this past summer, and I'm very grateful to have participated in that. So thank you all for your participation. I'm excited, so let's begin. First question, since this is around diversity and venture capital, let's get to the heart of the matter as soon as possible. Personally, I am grateful to Eric Anderson, founder of WestRiver Group, who gave me a seat as a general partner of WestRiver Group 2 years ago under his purpose of providing women investors seats because there's data that shows that men and women lead to better returns. So I'm grateful to that. That's been my experience coming into WestRiver Group in the last 2 years. But I would love to hear from all of you how you've navigated the experience of VC and been so successful as non-white males and as a female, Alicia. So maybe Alicia, let's start with you first.
Sure. I think that, look, as women, it is relatively unusual to have a female-founded growth equity firm, which is what Prelude Growth Partners is. But we're hoping over time that becomes less and less unusual and more commonplace, and you don't need to say female-founded because it kind of doesn't matter. I would say we, we're very proud. We didn't, frankly, perceive or speak about ourselves as female-founded. We just spoke about our thesis and our backgrounds and our plans when we were out fundraising. And, it just so happened that we were women. And I would say one, we received, significant support from our LPs. We raised our fund relatively quickly, and we're very happy with that. And I think one unintended consequence, to be honest, we invest behind, our firm is really about the regeneration that's underway in the consumer space, and we invest behind high growth brands in attractive subcategories, brands that we believe will be the powerhouse brands of the next generation, and frankly don't have a lens on diversity. But as it turns out, in our first fund, somewhere around 80% of our brands had a female on the founding team, and somewhere around 40% had minority on the founding team. And so I think that is somewhat unusual, and perhaps our backgrounds enabled us to tap into or more readily relate to entrepreneurs more across the spectrum. So I think that's a benefit that that we bring to the table in being diverse relative potentially to other firms.
Very insightful. I agree. I feel like I see that in my world too. Garen, what about you?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I'm glad. Thanks for inviting me as well. I'll confess, maybe similar to Alicia, my experience wasn't really mandated or driven around that. But when I was asked the question by you, I realized that, at my first firm, I think I was the only Asian out of 20 people at my shop. I'm not sure I thought as much about it at the time, but statistically that was the case. And then when I joined my second firm, I was also the only, I'd say, non-white partner there as well. So it certainly has been my experience. What does that mean? Maybe haven't had as many role models directly in venture for me that maybe look and have a similar experience growing up as I did. But I will say I was very fortunate to have a number of fantastic mentors who are outside of venture who supported me from lots of different backgrounds, to be fair, including white men. And I think that was important to have, a diverse set of mentors who would help me. And I do think it's important to get calibrated on these situations. And I don't want to overstate it, but I do think in many cases, at least I was viewed as the model minority. And there's some pros and cons attached to that. Usually that means you're good at math and you work really hard, but maybe not super strong on the leadership skills or vision. And so I do think that being cognizant about that was helpful, so that I could maybe help balance that expectation out. And so I think that translates also in terms of how entrepreneurs and LPs may perceive diverse investors as well. So it's just something to keep in the back of one's mind. But overall, I would say that I've been pretty fortunate to have mentors who did support a diverse perspective.
That's wonderful. That's very true. David, what about you?
I'll try to be additive. It's hard not to double back on some of what Garen and Alicia have said. So I've had a career that spanned a handful of different both segments of private equity. So Summit Partners in growth equity, Francisco Partners in the buyout business, TPG in their growth business. And then Advance is sort of much more like Summit was in the mid 90s. And so I've sort of spanned a bunch of different practices, if you will. And at all of those, I've been really lucky in that I've never had sort of explicit encounters where race or really, like, I know there are more because there are more women to have encounters with. But I haven't had lots of bad experiences I'd point at and say, I got something wrong happened because I was Black. And on the flip side, I'll look at a number of those firms, in particular, the founding partner at Francisco Partners, the gentleman, this guy, David Stanton, was before, 15 years ago, before diversity was cool, was talking about diversity for the reason that we really should be talking about diversity, and that is that it leads to better decisions. And so I've been really lucky in that in building Advance, I can build it the way I want to build it. And the way I tend to describe it to people is that, if you had a bunch of people come into a room and look at a three-dimensional object, and they all sat on the same side of the table and looked at an object, you get the same description. But if you have people who sit around that object in different places, you can together get to a better description of what the whole is. And that's sort of what diversity brings to problem solving, and particularly in investing, which is a big problem solving adventure. I think that's where you end up. So that is sort of how I've always thought about diversity. And I've been lucky in that I've never had mentors or partners that I worked for or partners I worked with where I thought that there was sort of a bias against about my value. But I do think that people do show up at conversations with preconceived notions about who knows what, who's good at what, and why. I'll echo something that Alicia said early, which is that, so I've got AVP, Advanced Venture Partners. It's an evergreen model. We're approaching sort of $1 billion of capital of AUM, and I've got one. My other investing partner is a woman, and there aren't that many firms run by a Black guy and a woman. We have not gone out advertising that. Like, we don't think that is what we sell, but we love the fact that we are that. And similarly to Alicia, like we have, without a mandate to do so, ended up backing about 40% of our entrepreneurs have been women, and those are founded and or led by female CEOs. We've had less success with Black entrepreneurs, and I think part of it has been that we're a mid-stage venture fund. We've probably looked at more than most, are willing to spend time with most, but the numbers haven't been the same for us, and so we are now proactively trying to be better about that. But I think it tells you a lot when you look at the composition of portfolios. People say what they're going to say, and some will say what's cool to say. But when you look at people's portfolios, they will tell you a lot about who they really are.
That's very interesting. I agree. I think the value that we're seeing at WestRiver too is, like you said, it's the diversity of networks that people bring when they come from different areas, and diversity of experience, because you're all looking at things a different way. And so it does make sense. And I'm glad that we're moving towards that, especially with all of you breaking glass ceilings, because it is pretty remarkable to search and find people to fill this panel, just FYI. So now let's get to something that I greatly admire and want to learn from you too. You're not only amazing investors, but you're also entrepreneurs, which is inspiring to the group of TiEcon in many ways. But what gave you the courage and motivation to start your own firm? Let's just go in order again. Start with you, Alicia.
Sure. I think for me, it was my partner and I really saw a very clear opportunity in the market, this idea of the regeneration of the sector. And we really felt there was a hole in the market, and there wasn't a firm out there that was well suited to address and capitalize on that opportunity. And so we really just felt passionately about the opportunity. And so that was number one. Number two, I would say, is I did have a partner. I think that's extremely helpful, at least for me. you're not in it alone and just kind of looking at yourself. You have somebody else that you're with, and with complementary skill sets and complementary mentalities and different perspectives is really helpful. And then the third thing I would say is it's a little bit of a leap of faith. You're leaving security or perceived security and your paycheck and assistant and marble table and all these things that you have. And, it's a leap of faith. And I guess for anybody who is wondering if at some point they should do it, I would definitely encourage it. I haven't looked back once. It's outside of having my child, the best decision I've ever made. And you have a ton of autonomy and control of your own destiny. And it's fantastic.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I couldn't agree more. It's the best decision I also ever made, probably besides getting married and having kids as well. And so if you're thinking about it out there, you should definitely do it. It's a fantastic experience. It's not all easy. I had the benefit of being an entrepreneur a couple of times before starting HealthQuest. But for me, it was about reaching the most number of people from a healthcare perspective, from a scale point of view. I happen to be a physician by training. Everybody in my family is a physician, and you see one patient at a time. If you happen to develop something and invent something, you have the opportunity to help and treat tens of thousands or millions of patients. If you happen to have the opportunity to start a company, even more so, and you have to have the opportunity to support 50 companies, even more so. And you may not know the names of those underlying patients, but certainly to reach that many people and help them, is what drives all of us at HealthQuest. I'm sort of chuckling at David's example because at our annual meeting, I give an allegory of the elephant and the blind men, and the fact that these blind men touch different parts of the elephant and they get a different picture of the elephant, but they don't see the whole picture. Maybe I should be using a 3D kidney example since we're a healthcare firm. But that concept we really subscribe to have very complementary, different, diverse perspectives. So again, probably not solely just to say it's diverse, but if you look at our team and you go to the website, there's 14 faces, of which 9 are not white men. But we do it because we want a complementary set of work experience, age, gender, ethnicity, because that perspective actually allows for better investing, better partnering with companies. So that's what's really, driven us in terms of how we think about, building out the team. In fact, when we recruit, we say this openly, we recruit for culture, IQ points, and experience, but in that order. And so we're trying to put the best pieces together from a lot of different backgrounds to be the best investing team, if you will. So a few thoughts there.
I'll give you a backdrop, which I always find this question or versions of this question to be sort of weird or funny, because I had for a while when I started fundraising, I said to people, like, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a consigliere to entrepreneurs. I'm a coach. I'm a shrink. I'm a cheerleader. I do all these things to help the CEOs that are in the portfolio companies I invest in, because I love what they do. And I've never seen myself in them. Like I think what we do is so different, and I find it really hard to call what we do entrepreneurship. I've always found that to be a funny thing. But when you hear Garheng and Alicia describe sort of the why and the how, it solidifies it. It helps you realize, or helps clarify why this is entrepreneurial. It's risk. We all took a lot of risk to build what we've decided to build. I remember as an associate at Summit Partners in the mid-90s, looking at the guys who ran Summit, thinking to myself, wow, I can't wait to be a partner somewhere so I don't have to work that hard, and like I'll have lots of minions who do lots of work. Like I feel like every year that's gone by since I was at Summit, I've actually worked harder than the year I worked before, right? Like, and so there is something of, you know, and I don't think that's any different if I'd been a partner at one of those firms. I just didn't know. But I think the part of this that that has been most interesting to me, or the most fun part of the journey, is from the beginning of my career until now, there has only been a continual merger of business and personal into sort of the who I am. And like I don't have different personas for work and home. I'm who I am, and I work 24/7. But the truth is, I can also not work when I want to work, when I don't want to work. I can go pick up my daughter from school. And so I think one of the things that the last year, the last 13 months has probably made clear to lots of people, and I think it's going to really, I know I'm off topic here, but I think it's going to be it better be really good for women. And that is that flexibility in work schedules does not lead to underproductivity. Like it leads to better productivity. And one of the things I really wanted to build in sort of setting off to sort of create Advance was a return to what sort of private equity and venture really began as, which was sort of an artisan business where incentives between investors and management teams and GPs were all aligned. It's not about management fee. It's about building real value. It's not about collecting logos. It's about we do 3, maybe 4 deals a year, and the idea is that we make room to be what we promise we're going to be when we make investments, as opposed to hunting, killing, and then moving on to the next thing because it's what's sexy and what's new. And so I've been lucky in that. So what I set out to build was sort of an embodiment of me in some ways, which is a lot of private equity sort of behaviors in a venture sort of stage, and with a team and hopefully value that's attributable to that model being delivered to CEOs and founders in a meaningful way.
These are all wonderful insights. I really appreciate you sharing them. And we have about 4 minutes left. So I think this is a global conference. There's a lot of entrepreneurs watching, and I'm sure they're all looking you guys up on LinkedIn and going to try to pitch you. So I think, let's end it with, you've all been extremely successful as investors and coaching companies and, being supportive to your CEOs. So give them some advice, maybe a one-liner from all of you as to what they should do to help get you to invest in them. Alicia?
A one-liner is hard, but I know we're tight on time. I would say, we really invest behind authentic founders who have developed a superior product and value proposition to what's out there and a brand that consumers love. So that's what I would focus on. If you have all of that, you'll be in a winning situation.
Yeah, look, I mean, for us, I said in our mission statement, right, it's about the largest impact on human health and the opportunity to do that. So if your company is pursuing that, we're going to be interested in it. Maybe one side comment, which is there's bonus points where I call entrepreneurial creativity, and probably that's not submitting it to businessplans@healthquest.com. So if there's a different way to get to one of our team members, certainly encourage you to consider that as well.
Mine would be that, so one of the interview questions at Summit Partners used to be, at least when I was, it is again mid '90s. But would you rather back an A+ management team with a C+ product, or a C+ management team with an A+ product? And I'm a huge believer that management is everything and execution matters. And there are lots of C+ ideas that beat B+ and A+ ideas because executives are better at executing, better at people sold people Pet Rock. People sold the Chia Pet. There are people who built great businesses around mediocre ideas or mediocre products because they were really good at understanding how to sell it, who the customer was, why they wanted it, why they needed it. And so I'd say that my one-liner is that management and execution and the ability to show that really matters.
I agree. We had the same question when I was in banking. So I look for that with the investors too. Management is key. Thank you all for this wonderful session. I learned so much. I hope everyone else enjoyed it, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having us. Thank you, Deepa.
Excellent. Deepa, thank you so much for putting together this amazing panel, and thank you to all of you for sharing your insights. Every panel, every conversation we've had today really has given us hope that, we are seeing change. We are seeing people kind of sit up and take notice to the importance of diversity and inclusion. And thank you so much. Thank you for contributing to that conversation.
Thank you for organizing this chair, Reggie.
Excellent. Thanks, Deepa.